America, welcome India, welcome Taylor Swift to the live studio recording pre-calculus in 212. Here we go. All right, so we are working, we just did problem 4 in class and we're going to go to number 7. So we're going to solve this inequality without graphically. In fact, actually I'm going to show you how to do it graphically at the same time. That would probably be good for the video, so we'll do that. We'll do that again. So here, if I go ahead and just multiply this out and move the 8 over at the same time, I've got x squared minus 7x minus 8 is greater than 0. Now, the last problem we did, it was less than or equal to 0. In this problem, we're trying to figure out where is the graph greater than 0? Where is it above the x-axis? Okay, so let's go ahead and quickly factor this without the x because we don't need the x because our leading coefficient is a 1 and 8 doesn't have too many factors, so it's going to be easy to guess and check. So I'll put my x's. We've got to have a positive and a negative because this needs to be a negative 8. So the only options we have are 2 and 4 and 7 and 1. And it's, or sorry, 8 and 1, right? It's going to have to be 8 and 1 because I've got a negative, if I have a negative 8 and a positive 1, negative 8 times 1 is negative 8 and negative 8 plus 1 is negative 7. I just hit 10,000 steps. Booyah. Okay, so what this means is, I mean, clearly we can tell the zeros are going to be at x equals 8 and x equals negative 1. And if we were graphing, which we're not, but if we were, we would have zeros at 8 and negative 1. The leading coefficient of this quadratic is positive, which means the graph is opening up, right? So the graph would look like, I'm going to do it in a different color, in green. Something like this, right? This question is asking, where is this graph greater than 0? Where is the graph above the x-axis? So we're going to have two different intervals. We're going to have from negative infinity to negative 1, and then from 8 to infinity. And we have to decide, are we including those zeros or not? Okay, but that's how we do it graphically, right? So algebraically, just like algebra 1, we draw ourselves a number line. I'll draw that here, okay? And when you put the zeros on the number line, you have to make sure you put, just when you're numbering a number line, the lower numbers go on the left. So you've got to put the negative 1 here and you got to put the 8 on this side, okay? Now, we're going to look at these 3 intervals separately because those are our points that we could have a graph above or below the axis. I don't know if it's above the axis or below the axis here. I don't know if it's above or below, okay? So if I pick a value less than negative 1 and I plug it into my equation here, what are my y values going to be? All right, so let's say I pick negative 2. We don't really need a value, we just need the signs of each of these factors. So if I put a negative 2 here, negative 2 minus 8, that's going to be negative, right? If I put a negative 2 here, what's that going to be? Negative 2 plus 1, that's going to be negative. That's also going to be negative. This is a negative times a negative, which is a positive. So those y values for that graph, for all these x values up to negative 1 are going to be positive, and the graph confirms that. See how the y values are above the x-axis. Now let's go to pick a value between 1 and 8. Or sorry, is that a negative 1? It is a negative 1. Okay, awesome. I'm going to pick 0. So if I put in 0 here, I'm going to get a negative value. If I put 0 here, I'm going to get a positive value. So a negative times a positive times a positive is going to be a negative. So this part of the graph should be below the x-axis. And then these, let's see what happens. Usually when we have a problem, we don't have asymptotes. It's pretty easy to, once you get one, it's pretty easy to tell the rest of them. But let's just go ahead and pick 9. 9 minus 8 is going to be positive. And then 9 plus 1, that's going to be positive. Positive times a positive is positive. This question is asking, where is the graph greater than 0? Well, it's from negative infinity to negative 1 and from 8 to infinity, and the graph confirms that. So how do we write that? We need where the graph is greater than 0, not greater than or equal to 0. So are we going to use brackets or soft parentheses? Because we're not including those points, right? So we have, run out of room here. negative from negative infinity to -1, but not including -1, right? And then I'm just checking my answer to make sure this is right. What number was this again?
7.
And then from 8 to infinity, not including 8. And we're good. Questions? All right. Thanks for coming out. Peace out.